All right, now it says I am live. Can you guys see me, hear me? Let me know, because I am not seeing myself. There, I see myself. All right, cool. So there we are. Okay, welcome, guys. I was just talking like I was live and realized I wasn't live. But I'm excited to be here today. I missed you guys last week. My husband and I were in the process of moving within the Denver area. We moved from the Denver Tech area, if you're familiar with Denver at all, to Littleton, which is where we have wanted to be for a while now. So we're really excited, and it was a good move. And now I'm back, and I'm really excited to be here today. I forgot to put a note in the top of the chat to please keep it respectful and clean and constructive in the chat today. This is a hot button topic, and healthy debate is welcome, but please keep it respectful. Please keep it clean. If you don't resonate with my message, that's okay. I'm probably not for you, and a different type of relationship advice and framework is what's best. So I'm going to take a look here in the chat. We do have Josie moderating today. She has a wonderful channel you should check out. It's for women with autoimmune and chronic illness. It's called Escape the Alternative Health Matrix. So make sure you go check out Josie's channel. And thank you so much for being with us today, Josie, and keeping an eye on the chat. So I'm just going to peek through here for a moment. And if you guys also could let me know that you can hear me okay and see me okay, that would be helpful. But hi, Mike. Great to have you. Hi, Mark. Let's see. Hi, Ian. Hi, Steven. Hi, Nick. Nick says, I'm so excited for today's message. Thank you for helping good men fight the good fight. You are welcome. And I will get going here. Watching from Bakersfield, California. Good to have you. Watching from La Pampa. Good to have you. And again, if you guys could just let me know in the chat that you can hear me, see me okay before I dive in to our topic, that will help me. That will help me out. So good morning, Bobby. Good to have you. We can see and hear you. Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate that very much. So I'm going to pop the chat down, and we're going to get started. So today we are talking about, why do men cheat? 3 valid reasons women don't want to accept. So to get started, I always like to give a reminder who my channel is for. My channel is for women who are married to good men. And if you are confused about what a good man is, or you are not sure, you want to go check out my live episode, What is a Good Man? And I go way deep into what a good man is in that show. So go check that out. But that is who my channel is for. And it is also for good men who are married to women, and the couples that are experiencing normal, everyday marriage issues behind closed doors, what you would reasonably expect your neighbors to be going through. It is not for extreme dysfunctional relationships or extreme abusive relationships. It's not for women who are with bad boys, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about bad boys here in just a moment. They are not bad people. The opposite of a good man is not a bad man. That is not what we're talking about. But if you are married to a bad boy, this channel, my message is not for you. So the reason that I want to talk about why do men cheat today is because it's been interesting. This week, I've had an influx of emails, of consultations, of comments on my videos, even some texts and some phone calls from women randomly calling and texting my business line, asking me, well, what if my husband cheats? And what if I'm with a man who's had a lot of affairs? And so I thought this would be a good topic to dive into. I want to make it clear right off the bat for this video that I am not condoning cheating. I'm not condoning affairs or good men breaking their vows, because to good men, there is no valid reason to break their vows and commitment, which is different than a bad boy. So a bad boy is not a bad man, not a bad person, but bad boys are not naturally wired to be monogamous and keep their commitment. It's not in their nature. They like to be with multiple women, and they're not wired to be able to fight that urge typically. And the reason that women would marry a bad boy, because we know if we're married to a good man or we're married to a bad boy, it's very clear. But the reason that a woman would marry a bad boy is because she is drawn to the volatility that gets perceived as passion in the relationship. And as women, we crave drama and chaos. And so we want to be with a bad boy to keep that drama and chaos alive in our relationship and in our lives. So a good man is very remorseful, whereas a bad boy doesn't have remorse for cheating, doesn't have remorse for sleeping with a lot of women. But a good man has deep remorse when he breaks his vow, or can even have deep remorse if he was even considering breaking his vow and cheating. So the reason I want to talk about this, not condoning affairs, is that I want to help us understand why a good man would do something so outside of his integrity and character and break his vow, not to excuse the behavior, but to help us understand from another perspective. Because even though a good man does not want to break his vows, it's not in his nature to break his vows, given a good man's humanness and the breakdown of his self-worth and sense of being a man by his wife's emasculating behaviors, can cause a good man to make mistakes that they later deeply, deeply regret. And our culture's take on men cheating or having affairs is gynocentric, meaning that women are rarely held accountable to have any part or role in her husband having an affair or cheating. And it's a double standard that when women cheat, it is often viewed as understandable and is justified and validated because of her story of her husband and her husband's behaviors. So women will get validated for having an affair commonly, and people will buy into her story. Whereas if a good man cheats or has an affair, it is considered a very hot word out there, I know, is betrayal trauma, and is very taboo. And he is painted as a very, very bad person, which then I have seen and have gotten emails where it causes good men to actually question their character and integrity and if they are actually a good man. So I want to help us understand this from a different perspective. What I also want us to know right off the bat before I get into the 3 valid reasons that a man would cheat, that as women we don't want to accept. Here's what I want us to know. That as women, we will intentionally push our husbands away, intentionally treat them poorly and in emasculating ways to push our husbands to the point where they might have an affair or cheat so that we have an excuse. And we have an excuse in several different ways. One being that if our husband cheats, we then feel we have a valid excuse to point the finger out and say, see, look what he did to me. And we have a valid excuse to leave the relationship. Or we will intentionally push our husbands to where they might have an affair so that we can make them the bad guy. We will be in a place where we already know we want to leave the relationship. But as women, we will rarely do the dirty work and be the bad guy to break the relationship or the marriage up. So we will push our husbands through our emasculating behaviors to push them to the point of cheating or an affair so that the marriage can end and we don't have to do the dirty work and be the bad guy. Or number 3 of why we will intentionally push a man to have an affair and hope for that to happen is we'll stay. We'll stay because we want to continue to be taken care of. We want to continue to have the security. We want to continue to not have to bear the burden of our life and responsibilities on our shoulders and have someone to share it with. But the affair or the cheating will become our excuse to put massive walls around us and keep our husbands pushed away so we feel valid in our withdrawal from the relationship, even though we don't want it to end because we want the security. So it's really, really important to know that. And I don't think that's something we talk about, of why a woman would want her husband to have an affair for these ulterior motives. The other part of the talk today that's really, really important is what we have to understand as women is that our behaviors have consequences. How you treat your husband is what I had to see. How I treated my husband has consequences. And some of those consequences are your husband withdrawing and disengaging from the relationship, him tuning you out, him being distant and disconnected. And it can also lead to the consequence of your husband going outside the marriage. And again, I'm not saying that that is right or okay, but we need to understand that how we treat our husbands, and I'm going to go over three big ways we treat our husbands that could cause them to go outside the relationship, is that how we treat them breaks them down and makes them vulnerable and weak, and then susceptible to being seduced by another woman and going outside the marriage. That there are women who prey on married men. There are women who prey on married men. One, it's enticing in that he's already married and committed. So if a woman doesn't want a commitment, then a married man is safe because she knows it's not going to go anywhere. Or she's a homewrecker and she's looking to steal a married man away from his wife and break up his family. Or she wants a married man to bankroll her and take care of her. So it's important to know that that is a reality, so that as women, we can see where our behaviors lead and take responsibility for our part and role and why our husbands might have an affair or cheat, so that we have control to show up kindly and lovingly so that they don't go outside the marriage. And again, while I'm not condoning affairs, it is reasonable and understandable, and in that case, valid, that a married man would break his vows and go outside his marriage because of how he's being treated. It puts him in a vulnerable, weak place where he would go against his character and integrity of how he would normally show up in life and normally show up in his marriage. So with all of that being said, let's get into the 3 valid reasons of why a good man might cheat. So, and we will get to a solution. And at the end, I have some very, very important, how do I want to put it? If you are in this position as a man or a woman and having had an affair, there are things that I want both men and women to know that go against our countercultural of how we often advise couples deal with an affair. I have some very different perspective than what is commonly out there. So make sure to stick around and let's dive in. So the first reason, I would say, it's not necessarily the number one reason, but it could be the first reason that a good man might go outside of his marriage and cheat or have an affair or outside of his relationship. Number one, they are not given affection. The first reason is that they are not given affection. It's really important. I've said this many times in other videos that sex and physical touch in general are the most important thing to a man in a relationship or a marriage. So when, as women, we withhold sex, and withholding sex is really important to know for us as women, might not mean that you have totally disengaged and stopped having sex. Withholding sex can also mean that you are checked out, not present, and not enjoying sex with your husband, which is a very empty experience for a good man. They want to be able to connect with us. They want to be able to know that we are enjoying ourselves and enjoy having sex with them. They want us to be there and be engaged. When we withhold ourselves in sex, even if we are having sex, is the same as stopping sex altogether. So when we withhold sex, when we withhold physical touch, where we don't even want our husbands to hug us, to touch us on the shoulder, to wrap their arms around us, and we pull away from them, that is devastating to a good man in his sense of self in the relationship and his sense of feeling respected, loved, and appreciated by his wife. Sex is an essential part of a marriage or a relationship. I don't know where we got it. I mean, I have some theories, but I don't know where we got it in our heads as women, that it would be okay to stop having sex or to check out and disengage with sex and think that that's perfectly normal and healthy and just how marriage goes. We need to understand as women that when we stop having sex, when we withhold sex, when we are disengaged with sex, we are breaking our vows and we are out of integrity in the relationship. And our husbands feel that, and it's devastating to them. And we become a total ice queen where they don't even feel safe to approach us. And it's fascinating to me that then we think they're just supposed to take it. That we pull away the most important aspect, or one of the most important aspects to them as a man, and they're just supposed to suck it up and take it, especially then if it's a sexless marriage and you're depriving your husband of sex for long periods of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I've talked with men that it's been 10, 15 years. And we think that that's okay and that they should still be loyal to us and that they should still show up and do everything else that's expected of them as a husband, when we've taken away that one thing that is so important to them. My colleague, actually, Josie, as we were talking about this yesterday, had a great example that it's the same thing that if you go to work and you decide you're going to stop doing a very important part of your role and responsibility in your job, you just decide, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yet you expect to hold on to that job, still get a paycheck, and potentially even get a bonus or a raise at the end of the year. That's not how life works. So I thought that was such a brilliant example. Thank you, Josie. Such a brilliant example that that's the exact same thing we do as women when we decide we're not going to have sex anymore, or we're going to check out, or we're just going to do it on anniversaries or special dates. And we think that that's okay and that our husband should still show up and help with the housework, help with the kids, be engaged, be present, show us appreciation, make us feel loved, be a provider, and stay loyal to us. Again, not saying it's okay to go outside the marriage, but if you're depriving your husband of sex and affection and physical touch, which are what most important to him, then it's very reasonable and understandable that then a man is in a vulnerable, weak place. That if tempted, whether that be with a woman at work or going out and having a beer at the bar, or a woman at the gym shows interest in him and a willingness to have sex with him, it's very reasonable and understandable that they would falter in their character and integrity, and for that to happen. So that's the first reason that a man might have an affair and cheat. is they are not given affection. Again, I'm going to say this several times today. Ladies, our consequences, our actions have consequences. If you have stopped having sex with your husband, or you are disengaged, or you have sex very rarely, or you are checked out and do it as a chore or a burden, a potential consequence is your husband going outside of the marriage and sleeping with another woman. The second valid reason, and valid meaning reasonable, it's understandable. Good men are humans too, and they make mistakes. And one of those mistakes might be breaking their vows. So the second valid reason a man might cheat, their feelings are constantly disregarded. Literally, as women, we do not think that men have feelings, because men express their feelings and emotions differently than we do as women. That we are overly emotional and like to talk about our emotional experiences. Your husband is not a woman. That is not how they are generally wired. So literally, as women, because a man might not talk about his feelings or express his emotions in the way that we express being emotional, we literally think that men do not have feelings. What I understand and what I teach, what's really going on psychologically of why women don't think men have feelings, is that as women, we have our walls up and we are pain avoiders. We will do anything to avoid uncomfortable feelings. We project with our walls up. We project our own unwillingness to feel onto our husbands and project onto them that they don't feel. What we need to understand as women is that being emotional is the opposite of feeling. It is another defense mechanism to suppress and stuff the uncomfortable feelings that we have. And it is the inability, being emotional is the inability to understand, manage, and be in control of our emotional state. So we can hide in being emotional and call that we are empathetic and more emotionally attuned than men because we are emotional. But that is not the case. We stuff and avoid feeling, which is why then we think our husbands don't have feelings. So when your husband does come, or a man comes to us to tell us how they are feeling, our knee-jerk reaction is to tell them they are wrong for how they are feeling. Or we feel inconvenienced and burdened that they are even having feelings in the relationship, because we are so selfish and so self-centered that if the focus is not on us and what we are feeling, it is a burden to have our husbands have any feeling or emotion at all. And we are very blind to it. We never, ever validate what our husbands say that they are feeling. When they come to us and they share and they would like a resolution, we refuse to admit our part and role in how they are feeling. And we are very, very quick to gaslight them and tell them how they are feeling is wrong and make them wrong for their experience. So I'd like to give a couple of common examples that I hear from men that I know from myself in the past and who I used to be and how I used to show up in my marriage. And that first example is if a husband came to his wife and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. I need you to know that I feel very stressed and anxious at the end of the day coming home from work, not knowing who I am coming home to. I feel very stressed, very anxious that I'm going to walk in and you are going to be in a bad mood, that I'm going to be in trouble for something, that I'm going to have not done something that I didn't know I was supposed to do. And it's very challenging for me." And as women, we will jump all over you as men to tell you why you shouldn't feel that way, to justify, well, let me tell you why I'm in a bad mood when you get home. I've been having to deal with the kids. I had to work all day. I had to go pick the kids up. You didn't do X, Y, and Z. And if you would just start showing me some appreciation and helping out more, then maybe I'd be in a better mood when you got home. Or we'll just tell them they're flat out wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm always in a fine mood when you get home. What are you smoking before you get home that you think that I'm always in a bad mood? And we will dismiss them and disregard them. Another example, a man might come to his wife and say, I really miss having the fun we used to have. I feel very distant from you, and that we don't have the same connection and enjoyment we used to have when we first got together. And I'd really love it if we could have fun again together, and you could be that woman that I met in the beginning. And I'm like, well, I don't know. What are you talking about? I'm the same person that you married. That's ridiculous. You feel that way. Or we might again go into a story of, well, let me tell you why I'm not fun anymore, and go through the Rolodex of things that they have done that we're not fun anymore. Or we'll say, well, who's going to be the responsible one? If I don't do these things, it's never going to get done. And that beats a man down over and over and over again, to where then they'll stop telling us how they feel and pull away because we've pushed them away. And what women need to understand is that when a man is beat down repeatedly for how he is feeling, and the right woman comes along, then he is in a vulnerable, weak place. A woman comes along and it's like, oh my gosh, and actually validates him for how he's feeling, understands his side of view, empathizes with him. And that's going to fill that emptiness and void that they feel within the relationship when we're constantly disregarding their feelings. There's a really good excerpt that I would actually like to read. That was this chapter itself in this book was a doozy for me to recognize that men and my husband actually do have feelings. But I'd like to read this excerpt because it really summarizes the second reason does a very good job summarizing it. And this is from The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands by Dr. Laura. And this is an excerpt from a man who wrote into her, one of her listeners. And he says, this is from the chapter 4 that's actually called Men Have Feelings? Really? So here it is. My experience tells me that since men seem to be afflicted with prurient thoughts about sex about 7 times a day, the right hussy with the right words and the right moment, and need I say more? Having known several males who have had affairs, I think several things are important to know. While I have known happy men who have had one-night stands and all regretted it later, I have never known a happy man who initiated or was involved in an affair. Affairs start and are fueled by something missing in the marriage, and it generally isn't sex. The affairs that I have known about started with a man alone, crying on a park bench, or into an adult beverage. A man in tears usually isn't alone long. So that highlights what I'm talking about, that good men are deeply sensitive and have a depth of feeling, but they are wired to shoulder their burdens, to go through life and they deal with it. But as when they try to share with us, when they try to tell us what's going on and how they're feeling, and we constantly beat them down, it puts them in that vulnerable position, like I said, crying on a park bench or into an adult beverage, and the right woman comes along. And that can happen. I also think it's important that as women, we totally contradict ourselves saying we want a sensitive man. We want a man who shares his emotions with us and shares how he is feeling. But then as soon as they do, we will tell them they are wrong, or we get turned off by a man sharing his feelings and emotions. We get turned off by the perceived emotional weakness. It's another way we are duplicitous as women, saying we want one thing and then we get it and it's not what we want. And just really fascinating how much we contradict ourselves. So again, ladies, our actions have consequences. When you disregard your husband's feelings and he is not validated for how he feels and disrespected, to always be told how he's feeling is wrong, and his feelings in the relationship have no place or no validity, because we want to make it about us and what we're feeling and what we're going through. One of those consequences could potentially be your husband cheating or having an affair because another woman comes along and will validate them in their feelings. So let's get into the last and third reason that men cheat. And again, if you're just tuning in, I'm not condoning affairs or cheating or breaking vows, but simply helping us understand why a good man might go outside of his character or integrity in the relationship that is reasonable given how he's being treated by his wife. So the third reason that a man might go outside his marriage, might cheat or have an affair, when a woman lets herself go and gives up. This is very much the bait and switch, that when we met our husbands, we were thin and well put together. And then we get married and we get to put on weight, stop taking care of ourselves, stop going to the gym, stop eating right. And we tell our husbands that you're just supposed to love me just the way I am. You should love this version of me just as much as you loved that version of me. And that is also a very unintelligent argument that's not who they met. So we do a bait and switch on them. We have it together because we want to catch a man, and then we get the man, we get the ring, we get the marriage, and we put on weight. We stop wearing makeup. We stop doing our hair. We are in sweatpants all the time, or yoga clothes, or workout clothes, but not going to work out. And we're not the woman that we were. And for the men listening, it's up to you to decide what you're willing to accept as a normal part of life. But I want men to know that it is not unreasonable as a man to say that if you are not interested in taking care of yourself, I am not interested in being or continuing to be in a relationship with you. It is reasonable for a man to ask his wife to start taking better care of herself, to start eating right, to start working out, to lose weight, and to take care of herself. And that is like a blasphemy to us as women, that men could do that. And here's the point I really think is important to make. It's not the weight or that's the symptom. What a good man is actually saying in that, what's actually going on, is that the fact that his wife feels so bad about herself that she's not willing to do the things to take care of herself is the issue. That what's going on is that he didn't marry or doesn't respect a woman who doesn't feel good enough about herself to do the things she needs to do to take care of her physical and mental health. So this isn't about fat shaming. I have had and have plenty of issues and challenges with my weight. It is a journey, but I know that it was a distinct difference when I had early in the relationship with my husband. Many years ago, I had let myself go. And I had always been on, my husband met me at with a little bit of weight on, and he watched me go through ups and downs with my weight even before we were married. And there was a point early in our marriage where I let myself go. And I put a bunch of weight on. You could see it in my face. I wasn't healthy or vibrant in my face. I looked haggard. I never forget this. I was shopping at stores that generally older women might shop at, and my husband was like, "Why are you getting so frumpy and wearing clothes that like a 60-year-old might wear? You're in your 30s. Like, can you please stop shopping at Steinmart?" I'll never forget that. But I had let myself go. And to this day, I know I'm healthy and happy. I got a little extra weight on, and my husband loves me for who I am. And I take care of myself. I go to the gym. I eat right. I do the things I need to do. But I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm vibrant in myself. And that's really what a good man wants. That if you're giving him breadcrumbs even of treating him kindly and doing things and making effort to take care of yourself, he can look past some of the flaws and shortcomings and be very accepting. But when we let ourselves go and we're not showing up and we're treating them poorly, it is a huge turnoff that we are not taking care of ourselves and we are not the woman or look like the woman that they met. And it's really important to know, for both men to know and women to know, that we as women intentionally put weight on. We intentionally stop wearing makeup. We intentionally lounge around in yoga clothes and workout clothes so that we are unattractive to our husbands, so that they don't pursue us or want to have sex with us or want to cuddle or be affectionate to us. We do that on purpose to put that wall up. So again, we're pushing our husbands away by giving up on ourselves and letting ourselves go. And the right woman comes along and he's in that vulnerable and weak place. Again, our actions, ladies, have consequences, and a potential consequence of letting ourselves go and giving up and putting on weight and not taking care of ourselves is our husbands potentially going out of the marriage and having an affair or a one-night stand or cheating. So those are the 3 reasons that is reasonable and understandable. A man might go outside his character and integrity of who he is and break his vows. Number 1, they are not being given affection. Number 2, their feelings are disregarded. And number 3, when a woman lets herself go, when his wife lets herself go and gives up taking care of herself. And we could look at other reasons too. I wanted to tie in that the umbrella of all of these reasons is our emasculation of our husbands. These are 3 different ways that we deprive them of their sense of being a man in the relationship and weaken them and shame them to be wrong and bad. That feeds an emptiness and void in them, that then a woman could come along and seduce them and fill that void and emptiness. So now I want to get into a couple perspectives on if you are going through this in your marriage, you have gone through it. I want to share a couple perspectives, and then we're going to get into a solution. Going a little longer today. I noticed usually I'm wrapping up by now. Had some things to say. Hope you guys are enjoying today's show, and look forward to looking through the chat here in just a moment. But the first thing that is important for men and women to know, that when you look at different, if you go take a look at different like affair recovery programs, it is very common these days that affairs in a marriage are called traumatic. And that's why we have these terms like betrayal trauma. And my perspective and what I teach is no. When we are so quick to call normal, common, everyday issues and challenges we go through in life trauma, it makes it so big that we can't do anything with it and we can't move through it and heal. traumatizing things and calling it trauma is a great way to stay stuck in our pain and never be able to move forward. So one of the things that we have to do is normalize. Doesn't make it okay or right, but to normalize that it's a common marital issue that many couples have to face. So we have a choice that we can either view it practically and pragmatically as a common marital issue and see relative to what it could be in most situations, it's a common problem. It's just an affair or a one-night stand, or even emotional affair is another topic we could get into. But that it's not trauma. Trauma are the things we go through in life that are very uncommon, not part of the everyday challenges in life, and that rarely people go through. So stop calling an affair and cheating trauma. It's not helpful to either party, but to see it as, okay, this is a problem that we've gone through. Where do we want to go through from here? And not traumatize it. The second thing I want to talk about that is countercultural. This is pretty countercultural. When dealing with the issue of an affair having happened in the marriage, do not disclose. Part of what I've seen about some of these affair recovery programs is that you need to disclose everything, and that everything that the person who is the victim in the affair, the person that was betrayed, that they have a right to know as many details as they wish, and that the person who cheated or had an affair needs to disclose anything the other person wants to know. And from my perspective, and having worked with men and women who have had affairs, is that the disclosure just creates unnecessary hurt. And when a man is disclosing to the woman, she collects all the details as part of her story and hurt and pain to hold on to that is not constructive. So my advice is you do not need to disclose all the details. That is actually much, much more harmful than helpful. The third piece that is also very countercultural is my perspective that if you are remorseful, if you have made a mistake, you've cheated or had an affair or a one-night stand, and you are remorseful and you intend to change and close that door and move forward with your spouse, my advice, it is that it is not helpful to disclose you had an affair. Again, I know that's really countercultural and can be very triggering. If you're triggered by that, that's showing you that there's some truth in this, and that's why it's triggering. I'm not telling people to lie or be deceitful, that it's actually done out of love and respect for the other person. When women want to disclose that they had an affair or they cheated, it's from a place to make the man wrong and bad, and look what you did to me to put me in this position to do this. So it's actually just another way to emasculate. For a good man, he's disclosing it because he feels deeply remorseful and feels he needs to be transparent and share what happened. But I have found it to be more hurtful than helpful, and it can be done from a place of respect and care. If you are remorseful and intend to move forward and not make that mistake again, it is not helpful to disclose. So again, I know that's counterintuitive, but that is my perspective and what I have seen be most helpful over the years. Again, not condoning affairs, not condoning lying, but looking at what's the constructive way to move through this common marital issue. So getting into the solution, I'm going to talk to the men first. Men need to know, this is really important, and I've seen this over and over and over again working with men and women the last 10 years. A woman will never, men, listen, a woman will never forgive a man for cheating. A woman will never forgive a man for cheating. She will always hold it against you. And it will always be number one on her Rolodex of hurts and pains and wrongs that she keeps track of. It will always be number one that she pulls off out of the Rolodex anytime she needs it to throw back against you. So you may say, well, that's pretty doom and gloom, Karen. Why are you telling men this? How is that constructive? Is that men need to know, even if your wife, so if you've had an affair or you went outside the marriage, do not become complacent. If your wife tells you she's moved on and she's forgiven you, a good man might take a big sigh of relief and be able to let it go. But then she will come back around and she will pull it out of her back pocket anytime she wants to use it to throw back against you. So men need to know this in a constructive way so that you don't get duped and blindsided when she brings it up again 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, and crushes you all over again by making you wrong and bad for the mistake that you made that you deeply regret. It will not go away, and it will be a source of contention in your relationship. Think of it like a wound that your wife will never allow to fully heal, because it is her justification for why she is unhappy and what you have done to wrong her. And it's the perfect backdoor for her to have her walls up, to keep you at arm's length, and to feel justified in her pain and justified in keeping her walls up. So also don't get baited. I want to reiterate this point. Don't get baited if you've made a mistake. Don't get baited to disclosing the details, because she will use those to fuel the flames of her rage for as long as she can. It is not helpful, and don't fall for the trap of thinking you need, if she does know, thinking you need to answer all the questions and disclose. It is not helpful. And ladies, you need to know that too. It is not helpful to you or constructive to you. If your husband's had an affair or cheated, it is not constructive to you to know all the details and all the things you think you want to know. It's just a way to create create and build your story to feel justified in your pain and hurt and carry it on and not be able to move forward and heal. So getting further into the solution, men, if you're in a marriage or relationship and your wife is treating you in the 3 ways that we talked about today, or the other ways that I talk about on my channel, it's important for you to stick by your values and morals and your character. It's important to not put yourself in a situation where you could be vulnerable to another woman seducing you and getting you off track from your values. To stay true to your nature. And how you stay true to your nature as a good man is to not put yourself in a situation where you are vulnerable, that could happen. It's also important to, if you are in a marriage or relationship and you're suffering in the things that I've talked about today or in my other videos, to know that you have a choice in whether you stay and work through things within yourself and in the relationship, or you choose not to stay because you are being treated poorly. So it's a choice, and you have to take responsibility for your choice so that you are not a victim to your wife and her behaviors. If you did make a mistake and you've had an affair or you have cheated, I want you to know that it is reasonable for your wife to forgive you and move on. It's not likely to happen, as I said before, but you need to know that it's not fair treatment of you for it to be held over your head for, I'm going to say permanently. You also need to know that you are not a bad person. I've had good men reach out who have made the mistake of having an affair or cheating and question whether they are a good man or not. A good man is not a perfect man, but and good men are fallible and human, just like all of us. But you need to know you are not a bad person. Do not buy into the gaslighting of your wife and our society that if you've had an affair or you've cheated, that you're a horrible, awful man. It's reasonable, given our human frailties, to make mistakes in life and make mistakes in your marriage. So you want to normalize that and then work on what I teach good men in my men's course, which you can find a link to schedule a consultation in the description below. But what I teach good men is to use the treatment of their wife as a window into the weaknesses within themselves that allows them to unknowingly give that power away so that a good man can rebuild his strength and confidence and not have that void and emptiness regardless of if his wife changes or not. So that is the solution for men. Women, what I've been saying through the video today, you need to take responsibility for your actions of how you purposely and intentionally treat your husband, and to know that your actions have consequences. You need to grow up and stop being a martyr and using, if your husband has had an affair or has gone outside the marriage, to stop being a martyr and holding it against him and holding it over his head. Forgiveness is one of the greatest virtues that we can have as humans. And so it's finding it within yourself to want to move forward. If you are an open-minded woman who wants to move on and doesn't want to hold this against your husband, it's taking responsibility for your actions, your part and role in the situation, and understanding how you treat your husbands have consequences. And we want to be honest as women about our own humanness. This video was why men cheat. I will also talk further in a different video on why women cheat, because it comes from a different motivation. But women we need to be honest about our humanness and having emotional attachments to other men, to daydreaming or having fantasies, and knowing that we have the same vulnerabilities and human frailty to be tempted. Yet we think it's okay if we do it and feel entitled and justified based on blaming our husbands for what we believe they've done to us to justify our own inappropriate behavior. So when you can understand your own humanness and your own vulnerabilities and weaknesses, then you can start to have empathy for your husband and start to understand why he may have done this. And then put your big girl pants on, grow up if you want to move forward and take responsibility for your part and role. And then it's learning to have a healthy relationship with yourself, to be happy within yourself, to stop blaming your husband for the issues and problems in the marriage, and begin to re-engage and show up as a kind woman. It doesn't take much. Men don't need much, even breadcrumbs of the things that I talk about. 10% of the things I talk about, a little bit of loving, a little kindness, having a little fun every once in a while, and a good man will be happy. I hope women can find it to give a lot more than that, but they're pretty simple. They don't need much. And so the reason that we withdraw isn't them. It's our own relationship with ourselves that we need to work on. And that's what I teach in my women's courses, is teaching us how to have a healthy relationship with ourselves so we can be happy, and learning to develop emotional stability through developing high emotional intelligence. And there's a link, the same link to book a consultation below in the description if you are interested in my women's course. That's it. That was a long one today. I didn't expect to talk that much. My voice, my throat's getting tired. So thank you guys so much. Please remember to like the video. And if you haven't considered subscribing, I'm excited now that my husband and I have moved. We are going to get a definitive date where we're going to do a video together. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And I'm still things have been quite busy, so I haven't quite gotten there yet. But I'm very interested in having a call-in show. So stay tuned about that, and let me know if that's something you would be interested in. If I had a call-in show for women and men and dealing with these marital issues. So thank you guys. I'm going to just take a look. And again, thank you to Josie for moderating the chat. I'm sure she's doing a great job. And thank you so much for being here. Oh my goodness. Good question. I just saw one pop up. The chat is just like going as I pull it up. But the question was, I saw, and thank you so much for your generosity. The question I saw was, why do women emasculate their men? Women emasculate men as a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So it stems back to the unhealthy relationship we have with ourselves as women, which stems from our inability to understand and be in control of our emotional state. Our unhealthy relationship also stems from the choices and decisions we make in our lives out of integrity and character of who we are that cause us to feel bad about ourselves. And because we are pain avoiders and do not want to confront ourselves and the choices and decisions we make that deteriorate our sense of self-worth, our sense of self, our sense of feeling good about who we are, we project that onto our husbands. So all the things as women that we despise and hate about ourselves, we then project onto our husbands, and we tear them down as a reflection of how badly we feel about ourselves. And this is a good time in this question, and thank you for the question. It's a good time to reiterate my camp that I do not subscribe to camp victim, which is modern day therapy and psychology, that it is our childhood, our daddy issues, our relationship with our mom, our past traumas that cause us as women to be so unhappy in ourselves. There is no way out of that. We will be a victim forever. I subscribe to camp take responsibility, that as an adult, how we feel about ourselves and the very life we have is a reflection of our choices and decisions, not our past, not our upbringing, not our relationship with our parents, not our daddy issues. That we are responsible, and it's the choices and decisions or lack of choices and decisions we make as women that deteriorate, again, our sense of self-worth and how we feel about ourselves. When we live out of integrity, we take shortcuts in life. We are unkind to our husband and others in our life. We put on a facade. We're faking it. It causes us to feel really bad about ourselves. And again, we don't want to face that. So we take how we feel about ourselves out on our husbands so that we don't have to be accountable and be exposed to it. And the challenge is that when we live as victims, blaming other people and our husbands for how we feel, we have no self-awareness. There is no self-awareness in being a victim, because our sole focus and lens is on what our husbands are doing to cause us to feel this way. And we have no capacity to look at ourselves and how we are creating the experience we are having. So that's why we have to move into camp take responsibility of, what is it about me? What are the choices and decisions I have made to have caused me to feel this way? Because then we can have a solution. But it stems from our own the emasculation stems from our own self-hatred, our own self-esteem and lack of confidence that we don't want to face and don't have a constructive way to face, that then causes us to emasculate. So great question. Thank you very much. Just going to look at, give me just a second. There's one thing I want to check. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, down at the bottom here. Let's see. So someone's saying this, I say that because, yeah. Oh, someone doesn't like the name of the title, that it should be changed to 3 reasons women want to accept, that I should take the valid out of it. So I think, I can see and understand that perspective. Again, it's not condoning breaking the vows, but to understand when a man is being emotionally abused by his wife, it's valid, meaning reasonable. Doesn't mean it's okay or appropriate, but it's valid, it's reasonable that a good man would be tempted in his humanness and weakness and vulnerability, which is the intention of the emasculation, to go outside the marriage. And that's the message today. So I stand by my title, but I appreciate it and I understand where you're coming from with that. Oh, thanks, Josie. Anthony Navarro has a great question. All right, let me see then if I can find that really quick. Guys, give me just a second because there's a lot in here and it keeps going. So my scroll isn't happening. So thanks for your patience, guys. Question. Okay, great. If the husband wants to start sharing your videos, would you recommend we watch them together and then discuss? Or watch alone, reflect on it, then get together after and talk rationally if possible? Good question. So that's one I might need to think about and address in my next video. But as I think about it, what I think is the best approach, one, men, I want to remind men, if you share my videos with your wife, it's important to know you're doing it as a constructive test to see if your wife is open-minded and willing to change, or if she is closed-minded, not willing to see herself in what I talk about and not willing to change. It's really, really, really important for good men to be able to heal in themselves and accept the relationship and make choices about what their next steps are, whether that's staying or leaving. It's really important that a good man be grounded in the reality of who he is married to, not personal or unique to who she is, but just as a woman. Like I often say, you didn't marry the wrong woman, you married a woman. And as women, we have these behaviors on a spectrum. And so it's important that a man know. You need to know, is your wife willing to change or not? If you share my videos and your wife is like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, thank you so much, which is happening. I have many, many, many women in my course right now that got there because their husband shared my videos. She was open-minded. She was a good fit, somebody that I could help, and she's working on herself. Then there are plenty of women who men have shared their videos, and it's the middle finger and how dare you, again, a dismissal, a disregard of their husband's feelings. If you fall into that category as a good man, do not keep sharing my videos. Don't keep talking about it. It's not going to be constructive, and you're just making it much harder for yourself. You want to then accept, okay, I now know my wife is closed-minded. She's not willing to look at these things, and she's not going to change. So now you're grounded in the reality, and you can make choices for yourself based on your situation, based on your values, based on what you would like to do. That's the taking responsibility piece. So with that being said, I thought that was an important reminder. Anthony, it's best to have a conversation with your wife to say, I'm having some challenges in how I'm feeling in the relationship. I have found a woman on YouTube who does a good job of expressing the challenges I am facing and speaking to women and helping women see how they show up in their marriage that is not healthy and harmful to the relationship. Can I send you a video? Would you be willing to watch it? I say it's best to have the woman watch it on her own and then maybe potentially discuss it, because if you watch it together, it could get very tumultuous or volatile very quickly, and that can put you in a position as the man to not know and be overcome by the emasculation that might happen of watching the video, to not know how to constructively move forward. So my knee-jerk reaction is to have her watch it on her own, but have a conversation first. And that's something I'll discuss with my mentor to see, because that's my knee-jerk reaction, but sometimes he has a different perspective as a good man that I don't have as a woman. So I'll be sure to ask him this week. I'm actually going to make a note so that I can readjust that next week on the live show. So watch videos together. Thank you for that question. And thank you, Josie, for helping me find it. Okay. Back in. I got a couple more minutes and then I'm going to wrap up. Like I said, I feel my voice is going. So just seeing if anything else pops out. Lots going on in here, guys. Yeah, I know that my wife would say this is all BS and it is the man always. So that's good for you to know so that you can accept the kind of woman that you're married to and then make decisions from then. And then we have Stephanie here. Oh, Stephanie, thank you so much for your comment. My husband sent me videos of you and I am glad because our marriage is a sub-dom relationship. So you're grateful to get the videos and see this perspective. So again, here's a woman, her husband sent the videos and she was open-minded to it. So you don't know. And that's the point. You have to know. What did Troy say here? So don't accidentally broadcast it to the TV during Thanksgiving dinner while her parents are over. Probably not the best, not the best approach. That's funny. Thank you, Troy. So great. All right, guys. I know there's a lot of wonderful things in the chat. You guys are a great audience. I appreciate you very much. And thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to wrap up. I've got a couple more things to do. And then my husband we have a few things to do left to wrap up our move. And it's beautiful here in Denver. It's 65 and sunny today and supposed to be the same tomorrow. So I hope you guys enjoy your weekend wherever you are. Remember to like the video, consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing